So today we're going to talk about three things with our SSD session. We have a circuit that you'll do today, which is just a fun little upper body circuit. It's going to be 4 rounds. Females will do 3 Scotty Bobs at 15 pounds. Males will do 4 Scotty Bobs at 25 pounds. Then the next exercise is going to be females 4 seated military press at 8 or 12 kilogram kettlebells, which is 15 to 25 pound dumbbells. And then males will be 6 seated military press at a 16 kilogram kettlebell or 35 pound dumbbell. Then a rope climb if you have a rope. And finally sit-ups. You'll do 15 sit-ups. So the 3 things I want to talk about here are on the push-up for the Scotty Bob is your spine. So before we get into the Scotty Bob, just in general, a perfect push-up is going to be done with hands just wider than shoulder width, 90 degrees right into the ground, so hands directly into your shoulders, and then also a straight spine. And throughout the entire motion, your spine isn't going to move. So it should look like this, where your spine stays still, as opposed to something like this, where your spine is moving, or like this, where again your spine is not in a stationary fixed position. What we have found is that a lot of athletes mess up the push-up because they want to do the push-up correctly. They want to be able to do it from their feet. They want to be able to go all the way down. But what ends up happening is if their shoulders or chest aren't strong enough and they want to get down to this position, they give up the integrity of their spine to get to the ground, even though they're not really getting to the ground with what they need to be getting to the ground with, which is their chest here with their hips up. So they just drop their hips. But part of the difficulty of a push-up, and if you've ever done a max rep effort, is your ability to hold your spine in place. It's an isometric hold for your midsection that adds difficulty to the push-up. So rather than having athletes give up that position, we'd much rather have them go to their knees and do it from that position, because now they lower the amount of weight that they have to push with their muscles. And then they also make it a little bit easier for themselves to stabilize their midsection so that they don't have that spine that's kind of all over the place. So on the Scotty Bob, you're going to have your weights. Now, if you can see, I've got my weights situated here at a 45 degree angle, about a 90 degree angle. That's just a tip that I give you, just a little additional piece of information. That's what all the cool kids are doing these days. So I recommend you have them about like this. It's actually a lot easier than doing them like this, because your hands are here as opposed to here. With the weights at about 90 degrees from one another, you kind of have an angle. It's just a little bit easier to get your elbows in the proper position whenever you go down. So if you can hold a proper spine position, then just get into the push-up position. Push up, row, push up, row, just like that. If you find yourself not able to go down all the way, so if you're like this and you feel your spine break right there, then just go to your knees. And you'll see how I do this. I'm just going to do a push-up. I go to my toes, row. Push up, go to my toes, row. So I get the best of both worlds. If you're strong enough to row, which is pretty easy with 25 pound or 15 pound dumbbells, if you're strong enough to row from your feet, we want you to do that. But if you can't manage that push-up properly, which happens to a lot of guys who are endurance athletes or have done a lot of work in the mountains, and it happens a lot with females as well, if you can't do a push-up from your feet, it's better to do a proper push-up from your knees than a busted push-up from your feet. So just, rather than allowing your spine to break, go knees, feet, and just alternate. Okay, whatever you choose to do, make sure that your movement integrity is at the highest it can be and that your spine isn't breaking, okay? So that's the first thing, your spine during a push-up. Second thing, on the rope climb, your feet. Now, obviously, with all things in fitness, everybody's got their opinion on about how you should do this kind of thing. A lot of people have you like wrap like this, and then curl this other one under, which is, you know, really tight. But if you get too fatigued and your foot gets caught or whatever, you're kind of in a bad position. You're really locked into the rope. And then the way that we want you to do it is just like this, where you have, essentially where you have, let's say your right foot standing on top of the rope, and then your other foot, your left, it's going to come up between your feet, and then you're going to kind of cross over your left foot on top of that right foot, just like that. So whenever you're on the rope, it looks like this. Just like that. Now I get a really good lock in here, and then I just push out. Move my feet up, and I push my feet out. So I'm pushing my feet out sort of a little bit down, but mostly out. I'm not trying to stand up on the rope. I'm not pushing straight down like that, because my feet are gonna slip, especially as I get tired. If I'm trying to move faster, my feet are gonna slip down. So really you wanna push out with the rope and then move your hands up. Move your feet up, push out, move your hands up, just like that. Eventually you will get strong enough where you can just muscle up the rope just with your arms, okay? But in terms of your feet, in order to get that lock, it's going to be a little bit of a triangle position like that, and the rope is just going to run under this foot and back over like that. So under my right, and I'm going to get that little triangle position right there, and then I can squeeze together. Now as I'm coming down, I can feather my left foot out, and that's going to give up some of the tension there on the rope, and it's going to allow my feet to slide. So that's the feet on the rope climb. One thing that we want to avoid is the PE rope climb, where you're like this, right here. Just kind of like squeezing with your thighs, because you're going to burn your thighs. The first couple times you do this, you may have a little bit of burn, kind of maybe here on your ankle, but as you get more proficient, you won't have that burn anymore. It'll go away. So that's the second thing, your feet on the rope. Third thing is a sit-up. Sit-ups are super basic movement, and yet we want you to get the most out of every rep, just like everything else. What we find is that, especially when we prescribe larger numbers of sit-ups, it's not like a larger number of sit-ups should be easy. 30 sit-ups is pretty darn hard. So, but if you start cheating around 10, and then for the next 20, you're like lifting your feet up and swinging. Well, I mean, that's not that hard, because I'm using momentum of my swinging body to pick myself up, rather than allowing my muscles to do the work. So we want you to have your feet on the ground, hands right here, just shoulder blades all the way to the ground, sit all the way up. Shoulder blades to the ground, sit all the way up. Notice how I'm not penduluming my hands like that. I'm not swinging my hands real big, just keeping my hands here in front of me. But also, something I've been noticing recently is I'm bringing my shoulder blades to the ground. This is much different than this whenever you multiply it times 15 each round, over the course of 4 or 5 rounds. That extra 2 to 3 inches of movement is a lot of engagement of your midsection. So it's heels, shoulder blades, heels, shoulder blades, not heels, low back, heels, low back. Okay? We want you coming all the way down, unrolling your spine. No swinging hands. So those are 3 things: spine on the Scotty Bob, your feet on the rope, and then finally getting your shoulder blades all the way to the ground on the sit-up.